Are we ready, Tanner? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our early morning Minerals Committee meeting. It's a different crowd that we have today in our group, people that we don't normally see here. So welcome to our little meeting, a little committee. Mark, would you call the roll, please?
Representative Campbell.
Here.
Representative Knapp.
Here.
Representative Larson.
Here.
Representative Lawley.
Here.
Representative Riggins.
Excused.
Representative Schmidt.
Here.
Representative Tarver.
Here.
Representative Weber.
Here.
Representative Chairman Heiner.
Here. Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
I don't know what happened.
So today we have two bills. We're going to start with House Bill 321. Representative Lucas, would you care to take the hot seat? Introduce yourself and welcome to our little community of minerals.
Good
Introduce
morning,
yourself and then please proceed. Good morning.
Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Good morning, committee. My name is Ann Lucas, and I am the representative for Wyoming House District 43 right here in Cheyenne. I appreciate you putting these bills on your schedule because they're important bills and they need to help our folks get the elections going the right way. So we're going to start with House Bill 321, and I'm going to fiddle with my glasses for a moment here. And so it's a pretty simple bill. It's entitled Election Judge Selection. It relates to the appointment of election judges. Essentially, this bill amends the current statute regarding election judge selection and providing that the county clerk should give priority to those election judges that are provided by the chairman of the major and minor parties in that county without resorting to their own list unless it's necessary. So let's look at it. Page 1, we've got a description of the bill, introduces the sections being amended, dealing primarily with the notice of election judges by the county clerks. Wyoming Statute 22-8-101 outlines the process where the county clerks select election judges, providing county political parties to appoint election judges and alternates provided from the list submitted by the county chairman of the local political party. But on page 2, it outlines that the clerk may appoint others. It's no secret that sometimes we just don't have enough election judges or things happen and people have to cancel out for one reason or another. So on page 2, the amended language, starting at line 4 through 8, simply specifies that the list provided by the county parties is given priority. This came about for some counties, this election cycle, that did not give the priority to the party selected lists. And that's why we're doing this. At the bottom of page 2 and on to page 3, the amendment to Wyoming Statute 22-8-112 little a, and little b provides the same safeguards for selecting from alternates, that priority should be given to those submitted by the parties. Page 3, line 15 specifies that the act is effective July 1st of this year. And that's it in a nutshell, and I would stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lucas. Committee, any questions for the good representative? Representative Larson, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thanks for being here, Representative Lucas, and just want to see what your thoughts are. So just going to set up a situation. So the chairman of the party has their own preferred list, or is it a list of Republicans, all of them, or just only interested Republicans? How do you see that working? And then kind of, I know that some clerks have troubles finding enough as it is, So just your thoughts in those two kind of statements.
Representative Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Larson, good question. So I speak from a lot of experience here in Laramie County because we have a pretty large central committee. And so first, the chair asks for interested parties. So far, nobody has really been drafted into it, although I suppose he would try that if he needed to. So interested central committee members let the chair know that they would like to be an election judge. Sometimes we put out a call to action for that too among the community, and then they let the chair know that they want to be an election judge. So then the party chair submits those names to the county clerk. I imagine that there's probably people from the community that submit their names to the county clerk also, but you know, the party likes to get the folks they know. And it's not like, you know, there's something fun going on here, a little underhanded dealing, because honestly, it is difficult to get volunteers. You know, no counties are enjoying an overflow of qualified election judges. And so what happens though sometimes is that there are other people in the community who want to be election judges. And so it has happened where the clerk has chosen people from outside of that. Now, I don't know that that's ever happened in Laramie County because, you know, mostly I just see our central committee members being election judges and Democrats also. And so but if there are qualified election judge applicants chosen by the party, then we really would like for the clerk to choose those folks. But if there's not enough people, if somebody cancels at the last minute, they know that they're short, the clerk has the ability to choose whomever they want. They just need to be a qualified elector.
Follow up, Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess the only situation I can think of where this may cause an issue, and I'm supportive of the bill, just so we're clear, but is, you know, my poll growing up when I would go practice vote with my parents as a kid, the same election judge was there for my entire life, and they may not necessarily be picked by the party chairman, but they have that interest. They want to continue to volunteer. So let's say, which is good, the parties find enough volunteers, like a lot more than have ever come forward in the past, that kind of pushes out the people that have been doing it for 20 years or 30 years, just because that's something they like to do. I could just see where people might get a little heartburn if they're kind of pushed out of their normal volunteer duties, but just your thoughts on that.
Representative Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Larson, I don't know everything, but I've been around a little while in politics, and my mother was an election judge like that from as long as I can remember. And but she was very active in the party and was selected by, you know, she was appointed through the party, and this was in Illinois. I think that if that were to happen, I think I would be surprised, because honestly, there's just not an overwhelming flood of election judge applicants, but certainly would be an enjoyable position to be in. And I would think that anybody who's been doing this for 20 years is probably an attractive applicant for the clerk, yeah.
All right. Representative Lawley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Lucas, welcome to Minerals. It's good to see you this morning. And I kind of want to follow up along the same line. So I think you mentioned that you don't know of it happening in Laramie County where there's been some names supplied by the party that weren't used, or they chose someone else to fill it rather than, so is that kind of, was my understanding correct on that?
Representative Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Lawley, I do not know of that happening. That doesn't mean it hasn't. It just means I don't know about it.
Follow up.
Yes, I would say it definitely doesn't mean it has either. So that's what I'm grappling with, is what problem are we trying to solve? And I guess my other concern really relates to, in my county, we have some independents that really are, so if they wanted to be an election judge, this would kind of cut them out from being chosen unless the party didn't fill up, which they, in my county, typically don't either. So I guess I'm trying to figure out what's the problem here, or is this a kind of a potential problem, or I'm not really sure, because I know, and part of it, because I come from a more rural counties, to represent 2 rural counties, and they do elections well, and they really typically, the party can't get enough. I mean, so it's not an issue, and so I guess I'm trying to figure out what the issue is, and how the statute currently seems to read well, and again, unless you have an example of how it was a situation where it didn't work, then I think I would understand better why this bill, but again, I appreciate you bringing it, but that's my concern, so if you could respond to that, appreciate that, thank you.
Representative Lawley. Or I'm sorry. I'm trying to.
Keep going.
Over there, answer my own questions for me.
That would be,
That would be fun.
that would be a good attorney tactic, wouldn't it? Representative Lucas, I'm sorry.
Thank you for suggesting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Lally, this bill wasn't written specifically for Laramie County. Although I live here, I'm also doing work for the people of Wyoming. And the Secretary of State's office will be speaking on this, and perhaps they can give some more specifics on what has happened in other places in the state.
All right. Further questions, committee? Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Lucas. When you talk about a qualified elector and with this list, what does that mean?
Representative Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Weber, thank you for that question. Qualified elector for the party, for the Republican Party, for example, because that's the one that I work with the most, and I've read the Democrat Party's requirements also, is a registered voter who lives in the area that they say they do if they're running for precinct. For example, for this, it would be a qualified elector in Laramie County. For the rest of the state, it would be different, of course. And so they need to be registered with the party. There's probably some more requirements there, and I'm going to let the Secretary of State's office speak to that.
Follow-up?
Follow-up.
Representative Weber.
Yes, that did answer my question about the list, because it's not a made-up list. It's the political party, maybe, the Republican Party has registered voters that come in, and the party chooses from that list, as well as asking for volunteers. Would you agree with that?
Representative Lucas.
Chairman, thank you. Representative Weber, yes, I would. And as folks who have run for election know, the Secretary of State and the county clerks compile lists of voters, and they are segmented or can be segmented by political party or unaffiliated, and so on. I know that running for office, I've used lists like that to contact potential voters.
Thank you. No follow-up.
All right. Any other questions for Representative Lucas? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there
Committee.
any other elected officials? Seeing none. Departments of the state? Welcome. You had to travel far to get here, didn't you?
That I did, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. My name's Jesse Naaman. I'm with the Secretary of State's office. Secretary Gray is available remotely if this committee would allow him the indulgence to speak on this bill.
Okay, we will take testimony in the room first, and then we'll get to those online.
Certainly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other citizens in the room that would like to testify? Thank you. Please come forward. We'll do citizens, and then we'll do those that represent other organizations. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Rebecca Bextel, and I live in Jackson, Wyoming. I would like to speak in favor of Representative Lucas's bill today, mainly for 2 reasons. In Teton County, we have some Republican elected officials that feel more like Democrats. And so I like the idea of the Republican Party having priority to pick the candidates. And then also in Teton County, I think our town is about to double because of a development that was approved. So we're going to have a whole flood of people, and that might be double the amount of people that would like to be election judges. And I like the Republican Party to be in charge of that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
It's Ms. Bextel?
Yes.
All right. So any questions for Ms. Bextel? Representative Lawley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. Rebecca, can I call you Rebecca? Okay. And your comments about Teton County. Do you know in Teton County if they've had situations where they had a full list, they recommended the people that they would like, the Republican Central Committee, and then those were not chosen, or they had too many? I'm trying to understand what the situations on the ground are as far as, again, that we just have these droves of people that really want to be election judges, and they're not being asked to fill those positions, or that list is being ignored. So could you help me with that?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Lawley, and my CPA lives in your district, by the way. My CPA lives in your district. I know that it is a popular thing in Teton County among my friends. I don't know if anyone has ever had to be turned away, but people, we have a strong conservative Republican group in Teton County, and we typically show up at everything. So we would like to make sure that we can still show up at everything, especially if the town doubles. So, but I don't know of a case of someone being turned away.
Any follow-up? Any other questions for Ms. Bextel? Rebecca, thank you for being here. You're a long ways from home. We appreciate you coming to testify.
I wanted to get warm.
Any other citizens in the room that would like to testify? Now we'll open it up to those that represent organizations.
Good morning, Chairman, Committee. I'm Gail Simmons, and I am the sole individual of the organization Civics 307 and Y Vote. I'm neither for or against this bill because it does nothing. Everything that is being added in here is already identified in statute. So when I look at 22.8.101, if you look at D, which is in the statutes, it says not later than June 30th, blah, 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 shall appoint judges of election and county boards and alternates from lists submitted by the county chairman of the major and minor political parties. So they're giving a directive to fill this list from the names that they receive from the parties. And then as a backup for E that you see in the bill, it says if it's insufficient, then it shall consider the list from the municipal clerks and then may appoint otherwise. So it basically says, it already says, here's the order in which you're going to appoint election judges. You're going to get the names from the parties, and only if it's insufficient, it already states that. Then if you have names from the municipal clerks, then you can add them in, and only then can you select anybody else. So there's a lot of words in here that add to the statute that are meaningless because it's already in there. It's very, very clear, and that goes for the others as well. So this adds a lot of words to a statute that already covers any concerns that somebody might have. It very clearly states from the political parties, and only if insufficient, go to the municipal, and only if insufficient, go elsewhere. So there's nothing wrong with this except for it's not a great way to add words to our statutes that add nothing to the requirements. And with that, I stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Is there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, appreciate your, whoa, easy. Representative Lawley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Mrs. Simmons, do you know of any situation in Wyoming, or particularly where you live, where there has been an issue with regard to someone being put on the list by the party and that not being honored? Again, I'm just trying to find a place this matters, and again, if you could tell me, that would be great.
To you, Representative, or Chairman Tarver and Representative Lally, I have not heard of any, but I have to tell you, we have an incredible group of county clerks that have come under a lot of heat for absolutely no reason, because they are professional, they follow the rules, and so the rules that are in here now, I can't imagine any of them not following this. So no, I've not heard anything. And I would be surprised if I did. It would be an extraordinary circumstance that I am sure that none of our major party county chairmen are shy, and they would bring it up. So I think we would have heard about it if it was an issue. So I think this is solving a non-problem.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Follow-up? No, we're good. Committee? Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to testify on this bill? Seeing none, I guess we will go, and is Mr. Gray available? Mark? Is anyone available online? Well, I guess send them our way, whoever's first. There he is.
Hello,
Please, begin.
how you doing?
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a pretty simple bill, something that relates to the appointment of election judges. And it amends current statute regarding election judge selection, providing that the county clerk should give priority to those election judges provided by the chairman of the major and minor parties in that county, which is a process laid out in statute without resorting to their own lists. This has been an issue that has been a little bit unclear. I think there's further Zoom testimony to talk a little bit about this. Weston County had some issues. I sent a letter out to every single county clerk. It was not just Weston County. And our position is pretty similar to, it's very interesting, Miss Simmons' position, that the current statute says that they should go from the list submitted from the party first, and then if it's insufficient, go to other lists. But that was not the way it went in every single county. And I sent out a letter. Some clerks said that they agreed with me. Some clerks said they didn't. Some of the ones that agreed said it was too late to implement that way, and that it would be for the 26th cycle. I think it's just better to make it a little bit clearer. I do think it is the intent of the original statute, and I just think this clears it up for everybody. So the clerks and the Secretary of State aren't disagreeing on this issue and not implementing it in a uniform way, which is really the intent of Title 22, the election code. The beginning of the code states that. So that's what we're trying to fix here. It has been an issue, and it's something that would really appreciate if we could clarify. So I'm in support of this bill.
thank you, Mr. Gray. Is there any questions? Seeing none, thanks for your testimony. Mark, is there anyone else?
Julie would be next.
Morning, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
and
please.
Members of Mineral Committee. I'm Julie Freese, Fremont County Clerk, and I'm speaking for the County Clerks Association this morning. We have a number of bills all over the place, so we're all split up. So I just wanted to give you an idea of how it actually works, and then maybe I can answer some of those questions. So in my county in particular, I need between 200 and 300 people. Fremont County is kind of like one of the top 5 in population and in voting. So forever, back in the day, I'm so old in this business that back in the day, you could go to the phone book and go, oh, these people, you can look through your list and say, oh, yeah, I'm talking about the parties. Oh, I apologize. You can go to the you could go to the parties and they would say, okay, I need to give you a list. They could go to the phone book and they could find people's phone numbers because you have to ask them if they really want to consider having that job. And you can't do that in this day and age. So it's really hard. So when we send out the list, these are people that are already like to be a volunteer, like to do what you ask them to do. They are from a party. We vet that. We send out the lists, and then we've asked the party, hey, here's the holes that I have. Would you look over the list and then fill in the holes and then send the form back to me? In this last election, I think I was short about 50 to 70 people. I got maybe, I don't even think I got anything back from the Democrat Party, and I got 10 from the Republican Party. So we do use our list, all of them, because by the end of by the time the election rolls around, somebody has had an accident, somebody has had a vacation that they've suddenly set up. There's all kinds of stuff that happened there. And so we are using most of it. I will tell you this about not using somebody. So you asked about qualifications. And so I just want to read here in the statutes, not by party. In the statutes, it says the county clerk may appoint persons who are at least 16 years of age to serve as judges of election or members of counting boards if such persons meet all the requirements to be a qualified elector, which means 18 years of age, U.S. citizen, registered in the county. And they can't be a member of the counting board at the same time. They also take an oath. The oath says, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will impartially and to the best of my knowledge and ability perform the duties of my office. I will studiously endeavor to prevent all frauds, deceit, and abuse in the application of the elections laws of this state. I got called upon by the Corporations Committee after an election, and I was quizzed heavily because some testimony from somebody in my county was talking about what my elections did at the polls that was not following statute. I was not aware of that. First of all, the poll watchers didn't let me know. People at the polls didn't find that it was wrong at the time. But when I did my investigation, they didn't do what I asked them to do per statute of what an election judge is supposed to do. We have to have the ability to take somebody off if they're not doing their job. So there is a situation in my county where there's one person to me all the time. This person will not follow the training that we have given them. And I think that's wrong, because then I'm in trouble for them doing something that might be illegal or against the election laws. So that's me personally. But I will tell you, I've had other clerks say that they have people that will not impartially do their jobs. And we have to say, you're not going to be an election judge if you can't follow the rules. And I think that's super important in our elections. I also wanted to mention that, let's see. We do use so a lot of counties don't have a lot of Democrats, so we do have to fill those holes in. And so we do try to pick so that we can have a bipartisan process. We are trying to reach out to independents. We are trying to reach out to libertarians, Constitution, whatever other parties to see if they're interested. But a lot of times we're still having to fill them in with Republicans because we have to have at least 3 people, election judges at the polls on election day at each one of the polls. Let me see if there's anything else. And I think that's pretty much it. We do use the list. We don't get very many from the municipalities, but they also pay for their elections. The parties don't pay for their elections. I'm just going to throw that out there. Not that that matters a lot, but the municipalities do have ballots on the primary and the general. They do pay for their elections, and we would definitely want to use their lists if we are short. Because again, we have to check if they're Democrat or Republican. It's not like we get a list and then say, oh, we can just use anybody on that list. So I could stand for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Freeze. Is there Representative Lawley?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Freeze. You mentioned the issue of sometimes someone who's chosen will not follow the instructions and training concerning the work of election judges. Do you feel that we should maybe put something in this bill that kind of addresses that particular situation, to clarify that you do have the authority to not use them if they have in the past not been able to comply with that training, or something like that? Because I think there's a point of that we are trying to complete a function, and that function is really laid out pretty clearly here in the statute. I have it right here, but so do you think that's something that you feel that the clerks need clarified, that, you know, in those situations, there is some authority to do that, so that you comply with the other parts of the statute about the importance of the role and what they're supposed to do and not supposed to do in that capacity of election judge?
Ms. Freeze.
Mr. Vice Chair and Representative Lawley, yes, I think that would be really helpful for us to have something written in that says if they are not following their oath or not following the training. Impartiality is super important. I know we pick everybody from a party, and I know there's certain thought processes to that. But as county clerks, in our day-to-day election processes that we do, we have to be impartial all the time. And so we train that way. We train that every person is a person that walks through the line, and not to be looked at as a party, or not to look at how we do things and say, well, this county clerk doesn't do it like I think it should be done, so I'm going to do it that way. So yes, if we had something in there that said we had the ability to remove somebody for not following, you know, their oath or their training, that would be helpful. And I'm going to tell you, we would not go crazy with that. Honestly, we need these judges. We all use the entire list that we have.
Representative Weber.
I have a follow-up. Thank you, Chairman Tarver. Thank you, Clerk Freeze. You had stated earlier that when the judges come in, you give them a training, and they, you know, of course, they take the oath. And then you had talked about some of the judges, if they were not following, like doing their job, for example, that you would say, you know, if you don't stop, or I might not be saying this the right way you did, but if these actions continue, you'll not continue to be an election judge. So you're already doing that, right?
Ms. Freeze.
Mr. Vice Chairman, Representative Weber, we have, but I will tell you that it comes with a lot of resistance. And sometimes we do have the party chairs questioning our ability to do that. So it's not an easy task, and it's not something we take lightly. It's not something we want to do, but sometimes you just got to do that, because you have to make sure somebody's voting rights are not violated.
Follow up?
No, thank you, Ms. Freeze.
Committee? Oh, Representative Knapp.
Thank you, Ms. Freeze. So just a little bit more on that topic. What were some of the judges doing that would deem them not following training or unqualified? And where would you put it in the bill to be able to, I would say after an election, to be able to disqualify a potential judge?
Ms. Freeze.
Mr. Vice Chairman, Representative Knapp. So a couple of instances. So the one where I was called from the House Corporation, or the Corporations Committee, I had 2 election judges making the voters read the oath. And that is a definite violation, the oath on the registration card. That is a definite violation of the statutes. The second one was, I had a person that was working at early voting, and I said, this was prior to voter ID. And I said to them, if people want to give you their ID to check in, that's super okay. I said, but if they don't, you can't ask them for it. And totally went over my head and made everybody, until somebody called me on it and said, they're asking for ID down there and they're not supposed to. Went down and said, you can't ask for ID. They continued. I just took them off the list. They couldn't work anymore, because they have to follow what we tell them to do. We're the ones that get in trouble. We're the ones that get told that we don't do our job. So it is super important to us that we make sure that everything of the election is impartial, and that all of our duties are followed to the T. And 200 election judges is a lot to hope that they do the same thing that you ask them to do.
Follow up? Representative Knapp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you obviously would like something in statute to help you with that, I think, solidifying your decisions that you make as a clerk. Would you like that to be actually in statute?
Ms. Freeze.
Mr. Vice Chairman, Representative Knapp, I do think that would be helpful. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't come to this meeting thinking we would ask for that, but the question was asked if we have to remove people, and we do it, but we do get resistance. So I think maybe that would be good to have an avenue for us to say, if you're not following these, the rules and the impartiality and that the kind of thing, that we can remove you. And like I said, we are not doing that lightly, that we need our people there.
Committee, any further questions? Ms. Freeze, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Mark,
Karen would be next.
thank you. Ms. Drost.
Hello, my name is Karen Drost, and live in Weston County, and this committee has been asking throughout the bulk of this morning's testimony for persons who've been harmed by this statute the way it is written, and Weston County has been harmed by the statute the way that it is written. Our county clerk in years past has told the party how many election judges that were needed for each election cycle. She had then come to the party at a later date and asked for help filling election judge positions very close to the election. And the Weston County Republican Party has always come through. I've been able to put out notices and ask the members if they would volunteer to be election judges when they have had vacancies that needed to be filled at election time. This year, I decided to be proactive and let my committee know that if they wanted to be election judges, that we were to let the county clerk, that we the party had the ability to let the county clerk know in April that they were willing to be election judges, so then they could be properly trained and would have the ability to be election judges. So I had a list that I had been developing of Weston County Republicans who are willing to be election judges. When it came time for the clerk to send the letter as outlined in 22-8-101, the clerk of Weston County sent a letter to the Weston County Republican Party saying that we had the ability to fill 5 alternate positions only, and that she had filled all the rest and would not be using our list. So no Weston County Republicans who volunteered to be election judges were put on the counting board at all, because she had previously filled them before sending a letter to the party. And she had also said that she would use our list, but only as a last resort for the 5 alternate positions that she hadn't already filled. When I challenged the clerk on it and said that isn't the way the statute was written, and I brought the letter that the Secretary of State, Chuck Gray, was nice enough to provide to the clerks, clarifying that they were to take volunteers from the party list first. My clerk said that that the letter from Secretary of State Chuck Gray was a quote suggestion. So there was a definite misinterpretation of the statute between what the party assumed the statute read and what the clerk assumed the statute read. So a person who previously testified, I believe it was Ms. Simmons, said that the statute was very clear. In the case of Weston County, this clarification that is being proposed was really needed because the way the statute is currently written was not very clear because my clerk interpreted it to read that the major political parties get the chance to fill 5 alternate positions only. We had a list of election judges who are ready, willing, and able to serve, and at least one of them did not get the chance to do that. So I ask that you please vote to move this change forward because it will clarify greatly some of the ambiguity that currently exists. If a person volunteers to be election judge, they should be allowed to do so.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for testifying online. Just curious, I mean, if it's clear that, and I haven't been in this, I haven't seen the situation, I obviously wasn't there, but if it's clear that they're breaking statute, why hasn't anyone brought a suit against the clerk for failing to do their job?
Ms. Frost.
Mr. Larson, thank you very much for that question. The Weston County group of concerned citizens, this was the very beginning of our clerk in Weston County not following statutes. She did not follow many statutes throughout the election. We challenged her repeatedly. We to the point right now where there is an investigation ongoing by the governor's office for multiple statutory violations for our clerk. And I thank you very much for that question because you would think it would be easy, but it's not. And the Weston County Republican Party, the Weston County Concerned Citizens, have fought back against a clerk who has violated many statutes. So you will hear the Weston County experience in many of these election integrity bills, because unfortunately, our situation is a situation where a clerk has made many mistakes and exposed many ambiguities in legislation that we would appreciate that you as legislators would clarify statutes so that things like this don't happen.
Committee, any more questions? Thank you, Ms. Oh, excuse me, we got one from Representative Weber.
Thank you, Chairman Tarver. Thank you, Ms. Drost. I have a question. So you think that in your county, if legislation like this had already passed, would it have stopped some of the antics that had been going on or some of the complaints that you guys have?
Ms. Drost.
Thank you very much for that question, Representative Weber. Yes, I believe that the election integrity statutes, the parties, the major political parties, and the people being involved in elections are a check and balance. So I believe in any good system, you need a check and a balance. And the more citizens that you can have involved in being election judges, being poll watchers, being members of counting boards, being members of canvassing boards, to oversee and make sure things are being done properly and things don't get missed. If you have a strong check and balance system, then the travesty that happened in Weston County will not happen. We as people who watch elections just want to make sure that everyone's vote is counted and counted properly. And the citizens expect that of us. So if there's things that you as legislators can do to strengthen the check and balance system and make sure that there is a check and a balance, that will prevent a lot of what happened in Weston County.
Committee, any further questions? Representative Knapp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So do you believe that clarifying the statute would give additional standing for litigation in the future?
Ms. Drost.
Thank you for that question, Representative Knapp. I am not a lawyer, and I would really like to see systems that worked really, really well, that didn't have ambiguity in them, that would result in a lawsuit. I think when you have a lawsuit because people don't follow rules or misinterpret rules, that's a bad thing for the system as a whole. You just want to make the rules, it's my feelings that you want to make the rules very clear so that people are able to follow them to the best of their ability, and we don't have the need for lawsuits because everybody knows what their job is and what they have to do. Does that make sense?
Representative Knapp.
Yes, thank you.
Follow up? Seeing no more questions, thank you, Ms. Drost, for your testimony. Mark?
Thank you for having me.
Well, that concludes our online testimony, and we will close public testimony. Committee, what's your pleasure? Moved by Representative Campbell, seconded by Representative Knapp. Any discussion? Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Again, I haven't really heard of where this has been, I have this one incident here in Weston County, which I want to get to, but that there's been an issue, I mean, with people not taking the recommendations of the major parties. And, you know, in the Weston County situation, is a clear violation. The statute is already written. In other words, it's a violation. So we could add some language if that helps people feel more comfortable, that brings some clarity. I'm okay with doing that. But I do think it's also important to address the clerk's role in being able to take people off the list so that she protects the integrity of the election from that end of it. So I think both is fine, but I just do tell you, I feel like the statute is written that what was described as the behavior of the Weston County clerk violates it. But we can make it clear. I'm okay with that. But I think it's important to know what we are doing and what we're not doing. And again, I think I really appreciated what Ms. Drost said about the check and balance. And I think the balance comes in by taking the clerk's comments about, you know, we having that ability based on fact and by, you know, and again, I think that we should amend the statute, this bill, to include that. And I can offer amendment at appropriate time conceptually or I can do it now if you want, move an amendment.
Representative Lawley, it looks like you have taken on the challenge to make this bill better, and we accept your challenge. What can we do?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Again, mostly this is conceptual at this point, Mark, but I would like to address what the clerk talked about if an election judge fails to follow the rules or in some way is disruptive of the election process, that they do have the right to take them off a list for the future. I think they probably already haven't looked in the statute during the election. They may already have that. But as far as coming back again, you know, I think that's what I'm looking for. It's very conceptual, but that we acknowledge that they can do that. Because I think that's one of the concerns I hear from my own clerk, is just this idea that, I mean, we haven't had problems in Washakie County, and she runs a really great election, Bighorn County, complex election with many special districts, but they do it well. And I think we all have the same goal, but let's let there be some balance here.
Representative, would this be something that possibly you could work on and bring in the committee of the whole, or would you like to pursue it right now?
Well, it's a good question. I think I'd like to, what I'd like to know is where's the committee's feeling about that conceptually as an idea? And I see nodding of heads, so.
Committee, can we get a raise of hands? Do we like this idea? Representative Knapp, please.
I would agree with Representative Lawley. And the only thing in my mind right now is to, rather than cloud it on the beginning with the selections, is to possibly have a sub-C or something that would, after an election, if it's found that a judge should be taken off that list, that would be the appropriate time to do it rather than at the beginning during the selections.
Yep, I agree with that.
So where does that leave us at this point? So would you like to move a conceptual amendment, or are we gonna?
I would like it to be in here, and if we're, sorry, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, thank you. I would like to have something as part of this balance here, because at some point you do begin to tip the scales. And I don't think anyone in the public wants any of our political parties running these elections. I think they want them to play these roles. I think they're important roles. I think, again, many counties don't really have a problem here, but, and I don't mind these clarifications, although I would tell you legally, I don't think they're necessary, but I'm okay with them. But I do think putting this in here, and I like your point under C, that after the fact, they can take them off a list. And that's really the conceptual amendment, Mark, is that the clerks have that authority if they don't follow training and requirements of law, that they can be taken off that list. They have that authority.
Okay, so we've amended the first conceptual to our second conceptual, and Mark, you have it straight as an arrow? Okay, and Representative Larson has seconded that motion,
Comment?
and Representative Weber.
I like the idea of where that's going. Could we also have something in there to say, it's not just okay, you're off the list or you're on the list, but kind of some reasons why or documentation why a judge would be removed? I think that would be important, so that part's not left open.
Representative Lawley, would you be up to amending your conceptual second amendment?
In principle, yes, but I'm wondering if we don't, that's just not something that could be done through rules, but that they have some statement or form they fill out or something like that, and that we can listen to the Secretary of State's office and see about that. But, we can try to conceptualize it here, but I think it's going to still be something that's going to have to be described through rules to effectuate. So, because there's also another issue I'll raise is what is an appeal process? Or like if someone says, okay, I've learned, and, at what point can they get back on the list? So, I don't think the intent here is to be restricted, but just to clarify authority we want these electors to do a good job. We all want them to do what the statute envisions them doing. And I have literally no issue with regard to how the statute reads or even adding this to clarify the party's role in that. That's not really where I'm going with it. It's just trying to create that balance within the system. So, I don't know, I don't know if the Secretary of State is still available, but I think that this could be part of a rulemaking once we say they have the authority. But
Okay, so we're gonna leave. Representative Knapp, would you like to comment?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I think if you just base that authority off of a violation of statute, I think that clarifies it. It makes it easier because if you just went by training or anything else from the perspective of the clerk, that gets a little ambiguous, even with rules. So if we just kind of contained it to a violation of statute.
Okay, so Representative Lawley, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. What I would say is, I would agree that it's to statute, but I think there also needs to be something about disruption that might not technically violate statute, but it's disrupting the process. And again, I don't know that we've had that problem. Clearly, they have had some issues with people following the rules. We heard testimony on that, but so there might be something that's not in the statute specifically, but that it becomes disruptive in the process. Nobody wants that. I mean, it hurts everybody. So I guess that's what I would say is maybe not training, but just that if they, as a situation where they're disruptive, not following direction of the clerk's office.
Representative Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I think it'd be very important to definitely work with the Secretary of States and the clerks to make sure that everything is, that it can be applied. Thank you.
Committee, any further comment? Okay, so Mark, we are voting on, I believe, the second conceptual.
It's the same one.
It's the same one, so we're back to the first one, and I believe Representative Wally will get with you after this so it can be straightened out a little bit. Those are all,
Can I just summarize it for everyone?
please.
It might be good at this point in the process. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. So what I am contemplating, again, based on, partly on Representative Knapp's suggestion, so putting in on page 3, section C, a new section, put a C there, and then that's where we would have this clarifying that the clerks, county clerks have the authority to remove electors from the list based on violations of statute, and I would include disruption of the process, period. And that's kind of where it would go, that they have the authority. I think that other things could be fleshed out through rulemaking, but that's my motion, and.
Okay, and our second is in agreement to that? Yes, okay, so there we have it. Now we shall vote on it. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That motion amendment has passed. Now, is there any other amendment that we'd like to do? Is comments? Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, and no amendment, just conversation. I don't have a problem with the bill or putting this language into statute. It clarifies what's already in statute, and most counties are already following it. So I think that, the counties where there are problems, they should probably consider bringing up suit with clerks that aren't following the law, just like they should with any other violation of law that the clerks are supposed to follow. So, other than that, I'm supportive of the bill. Thanks.
Committee, any further discussion? Mark, please. House Bill 321, call for votes.
Voting on House Bill 321 with a conceptual amendment. Representative Campbell.
Aye.
Representative Knapp.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Lawley.
Aye.
Representative Riggins.
Excused.
Representative Schmidt.
Aye.
Representative Tarver.
Aye.
Representative Weber.
Aye.
Chairman Heiner has voted aye. So the vote is 8 aye with 1 excused.
With that, I guess we will move on to our next bill, committee. And that is House Bill 318. Representative Lucas, you're up again. You know the routine. Introduce yourself in case some of us have forgotten, and please start in with your testimony. When you're ready, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. My name is Ann Lucas, and I represent House District 43 here in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And I am pleased to be here to present to you House Bill 318. It's entitled Maintenance of Voter Lists. This bill is about proper voter list maintenance. and ensuring that Wyoming's voter rolls are properly maintained, which I know is a big priority of both the Secretary of State's office and the people of Wyoming. So let's take a look at the bill. On page 1, this is an act that essentially empowers our Secretary of State and his office with more tools to verify voter registration data from external sources. The pertinent amendments are to Wyoming Statute 22-3-102, which govern data sharing agreements that the Secretary of State currently has, primarily with WYDOT. Page 2, beginning on line 5, this amends the statute authorizing the Secretary of State to enter into agreements, and specifically Wyoming Statute 22-3-102, small e, Romanet 1, with the Wyoming Department of Transportation, and it does two things. First, it gives the Secretary of State authority to obtain more data for alien IDs from WYDOT. And it provides that WYDOT share information they may get from other states when an individual registered to vote in Wyoming has obtained a driver's license in another state. Second, at the bottom of page 2 and moving into page 3, the amendment to Wyoming Statute 22-3-102, small e, Romanet 6, provides statutory authority to the Secretary of State to utilize information from the Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements, SAVE program, to verify any voters listed on the Wyoming voter registration system that they are United States citizens. Third, the bill amends subsection F on the middle of page 3 to statutorily authorize the Secretary of State more information obtained by WYDOT pertaining to non-citizens. Finally, at the bottom of page 3 and on to page 4, it allows the Secretary of State or county clerk investigate based on this information and permissive authority to the county clerk to cancel registration if they have data indicating that a voter moved to another state. And then lastly, on page 4, line 14, section 2 specified that the act will be effective July 1st of this year. And with that, that is this simple little bill. We are recommending an amendment, so later I can hand you this. It's just a sentence that clarifies something. And I would stand for questions. Thank you.
Committee, Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Thank you. Good morning again, Representative Lucas. I just have a kind of a clarification on page 4. It says that the elector asks that his name be removed, which, but it later kind of implies that might need to be in writing, but it doesn't really say that. And I'm wondering if that is the intent, that it could be in writing or it must be in writing. And I'm on line 6, on page 4, where it says unless the elector asks that his name remain on the registry list. Ask kind of sounds like I call somebody up and I ask them, but then later it talks about if the elector requested cancellation in writing. So there's just a little lack of clarity there. I'm thinking maybe you do want it to be a written request and maybe an amendment there about on line 6. But anyway, that was just something I felt was could be confusing.
Representative Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Lawley, no flies on you. Good eye. I will say that this is not an amended portion of the statute. And so admittedly, I didn't spend a lot of time on that one because we weren't changing it. I assume ask means in writing, but it doesn't say that. Joe Rubino, the Chief Counsel to Secretary of State's office, is online, and we'll ask him when it's his turn.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, and thanks again for being here. So looks like I'm supportive of this bill. as it sits. One question I have is on page 3, paragraph F. And I'm sure YDOT and Highway Patrol deals with people like this all the time, but there's certain people who are US citizens, but they claim to be sovereign citizens, and on any document that asks if they're a US citizen, they kind of get a little frustrated. I've seen it on YouTube videos. People get really worried that they're signing up for something that they don't want to sign up for. They are US citizens, they were born here. But I don't know, I just see maybe an issue with this paragraph for those people who fill out driver's license applications thinking, oh, I don't want to commit to something that, I don't know. It's a long path. You have to kind of put the tinfoil hat on to understand what they're talking about. But I've seen it on YouTube. There's people that, you know, when they get pulled over, they say, I'm a sovereign citizen. I don't need a driver's license, all that stuff. Just your thoughts on that. Sorry.
Representative Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Larson, I have heard of such things myself. I'm pretty certain that this statute isn't intending to speak to that in any way.
Committee. Representative Lucas, thank you. You did a good job. Not many questions. But yes, please, if you have an amendment, bring forth.
Thank you. It's a very easy amendment. We just think it makes something a little clearer. If you look on page 2, line 16, and it's just at the very end, right before state to state, so after received, and I'll hand this to you so you don't have to write it down. Insert other states, including but not limited to information received from, and then state to state verification service. In case state to state isn't clear, we wanted to just clarify that a little bit. So let me hand this out to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Representative Lucas, would you like to speak any more on this bill, or are you finished? Okay. Do we have any? Thank you for your testimony. Do we have, please?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Jesse Naaman. I'm with the Secretary of State's office. I have to run across the hall. I just wanted to let the committee know, Secretary, as mentioned earlier, Secretary Gray is online to speak on this. And as to the amendment, more details, also in line is our Chief Policy Officer and General Counsel, Joe Rubino. So if it's the appropriate time, I wanted to just notify you they're ready to speak.
Sir, we will get them as soon as everyone in the right here is done, and they'll be right behind those.
Fantastic. I'll be across the hall if needed further. We have another bill over there, but thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We'll come get you if we need you. Are there any state agencies, seeing no one else is in here, that would like to testify? Got this odd feeling there is. Thank you, sir. Please introduce yourself and tell us what you know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Taylor Rossetti, Deputy Director for YDOT. We do work very closely with the Secretary of State's office in this regard. As mentioned by Representative Lucas, this does largely clarify the things that we're already doing to work with them, and actually does make it then very clear what the duties are for both parties. So we did work with them yesterday to work out that amendment. That amendment is useful, I believe, because the system that's in there is a proprietary system, which is fine, but if that system were to change, the amendment would allow for whatever the new system to be, also to be used without having to come back in and clarify in statute. So that does seem to clean things up for us. Regarding the question that Representative Larson had, what I can say is that no individual would be on the list of information that we pass to the Secretary of State's office who have not met the requirements to either be issued a driver's license or an ID card. So on a roadside stop, if they claim some sort of status that they didn't need to have identification, whether they have it or not is a whole different issue, but they would not be in our system if they did not meet the requirements. So for voting purposes, they'd have to meet eligibility in some other way. And with that, I'd certainly answer any questions.
Thank you. Committee, do we have any questions? Ms. Rossetti, seeing none, appreciate it. Mark, I guess if we can get Secretary of State, Mr. Gray, next, that would be wonderful.
Secretary of State left.
Okay, how about Mr. Rubino?
He's on the way.
Perfect, thank you.
Can you hear me okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Rubino, please give us your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize. We've got a couple of meetings going on this morning, and I'm out. I'm a little under the weather today, catching whatever's going around, so I'm testifying remotely. Joe Rubino, I'm the Chief Policy Officer and General Counsel at the Secretary of State's office. We really appreciate this bill, and Representative Lucas, she did a wonderful job of doing a walkthrough of the bill, and so I won't belabor that point. I appreciate all the questions today, and I appreciate the time that we had with the sponsor as well as the Department of Transportation on sort of crafting this, which one codifies existing statute or our ability to obtain certain records from WYDOT, to verify eligibility to vote, two, enabling us to leverage our relationship with WYDOT to obtain new information pertaining to voter registrations, and three, enabling a new avenue to obtain data that will allow us to analyze and communicate to the clerks if a registered voter in the state of Wyoming should have their registration canceled for having removed to another state. This is a huge priority of our administration, proper voter list maintenance. We've done a lot of work with the Department of Health on this as well. And we're looking forward to continuing to do great work with WYDOT. I want to highlight a few key provisions of the bill in its relation to our office. First, on page 2, as Representative Lucas already went through, the changes to 22.3.102 subsection E, Romanet 1, pertaining to our office's agreement to match voter registration data. This amendment does two things. First, it provides statutory authority to obtain alien ID numbers held by WYDOT, which we will then be able to cross-reference with our voter registration list that's maintained by our office to determine any individuals who should be canceled by virtue of their non-citizen status. Second, the amendment gives our office explicit authority to obtain information obtained by WYDOT that they receive from other states when any voter on the voter registration list has obtained a driver's license from another state, thereby indicating the individual may have moved out of state. Representative Lucas already discussed this amendment, and I believe, after our discussion yesterday with WYDOT, that was a great suggestion. It came from Mr. Rossetti about clarifying that not just for the S2S, the state-to-state verification service, which, as Mr. Rossetti said, is proprietary, it allows any other agreement that Wyoming, WYDOT may have with other states so that we can achieve that data. However, just speaking in terms of what we were thinking on this bill and our discussions with the sponsor in drafting it, is that was sort of the chief tool right now that I think we can leverage, that what we had in mind. Second, at the bottom of page 2 and onto page 3, the amendment to Romanet 6 provides statutory authority to our office to utilize information from the SAVE program to verify any voters listed on the voter registration system are U.S. citizens. Third, the amendment to subsection F on the middle of page 3, this really codifies existing practice of data WYDOT's giving our office to obtain information of the list of persons who, although they appear on the statewide voter rolls or voter registration system, they have indicated to WYDOT that they are a non-citizen. And finally, tying this all together, this enables our office to notify counties of their ability to cancel registrations of an individual on a statewide voter registration system should any of the data we have received and any other investigation reveals that their registration should be canceled. And I want to speak a little bit because I think this interacts a little bit with Representative Lawley's question, and I appreciate that question. I would caution the committee to amend. That is existing language. And yes, you do have, it actually comes from 22, let me pull that up real quick. The grounds for cancellation of registration, that does not appear in the bill, but that provides for, among other things, including death, removal of residence to another state, which is really part of what this bill is getting at, as well as disqualification to vote. Romanet 5 under 22.3.115 deals with, Romanet 6, excuse me, deals with a written request of the elector at any time except for the period that discusses the lockout period after the passage of the party crossover ban in 2023. Those are two different things. The removal, the notice and the removal, that process, the county clerks, if they're on, they can speak to this, but I would hesitate to move away from what is an existing statute on that and not conflate it with Romanet 6, which, yes, is on a written request of the elector at any time, except for that period. But I just want to provide that. I would hesitate to amend that's existing statute to change that. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I think that, again, we're in full support of this bill. Secretary Gray, this is a huge priority for us, and continuing to work with WYDOT. I think this is a great way to codify some of our existing practices and also to allow us to get new tools that we can use to maintain proper voter rolls.
Thank you, committee. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Rubino, for your testimony. Mark, do we have anyone else? Would Ms. Freeze like to? Yes.
Julie would be next.
Ms. Freeze, please come on and introduce yourself again and provide your testimony.
Thank you again, Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the Mineral Committee. I'm Julie Freeze, Fremont County Clerk, and I am testifying today for the County Clerks Association. Again, just what we always try to do is just give you information. We have no problem with this bill whatsoever, but I just wanted to get information. I had heard, and maybe Mr. Rossetti could follow that up, but my understanding that Real ID would take care of this when everybody has to be using this across the nation is my understanding by May. In the meantime, the SAVE part would definitely probably take care of that. Information wise, we are super lucky in Wyoming that we don't have many non-citizens. We did turn away 5 non-citizens at the last election. And just as so our wire reg system is what we're talking about here, which is how we maintain our voter registration rolls. And we have agency agreements with, just so everybody knows, we have agency agreements with WYDOT, obviously, and then we have with Vital Records to receive all the deaths. We also have with DCI for all felony convictions, and then probation and parole when they are removed from those statuses. This is a little pitch, but when we use the e-poll books that the Secretary of State's office have designed in the past, and this current administration is continuing, those of us using e-poll books at the poll, we're catching them when they're at our line, when they're registering to vote. So those of us who had that system, we're putting, like I had 9 felons that did not get to vote in my county, and I didn't have any non-citizens in my county, but the other counties that were on there. So we're able to make sure that they don't vote right there at the polls, where other ones who have paper poll books, they have to wait and find out that they had voted, and then we have to prosecute them. In the page 4, the question about whether or not an elector asks that their name, in this section, this is definitely used mostly in our office for when we have to send letters out to felons that maybe registered to vote sometime during the year, and then it pops up, or you've been a registered voter and suddenly you become a felon. That also pops up on our system. we have to send them a letter and give them a chance to say that is me or not me, or my rights have been restored. So they do have 20 days. Generally, we need paperwork on that. So we're asking for it anyway. But I could stand for any other questions you have.
Thank you. Committee, any questions? Ms. Freeze, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Mark, do we have anyone else online? All right. Seeing no more online, we'll close public testimony. Committee, what's your pleasure? Moved by Representative Weber, seconded by Representative Larson. Okay, should we walk through the bill? All right, page 1, anything? Page 2, anything? Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I move the amendment that was recommended. So on page 2, line 16, after the word "receive from," insert "other states, comma, including but not limited to information received from," end quote. And we all have that, so insert that language.
Seconded by Representative Knapp. All those in favor, or would we like discussion on this? Question being called. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion, or that has passed. All right, on to page 3. On to page 4. That's pretty much the end of the bill. So, committee, what's your pleasure?
Question.
Question being called. We will take roll on House Bill 318.
Voting on House Bill 318 with amendment. Kevin Campbell.
Aye.
Or Representative Campbell. Sorry. Representative Knapp.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Lawley.
Aye.
Representative Riggins.
Excused.
Representative Schmidt.
Aye.
Representative Tarver.
Aye.
Representative Weber.
Aye.
Chairman Heiner has voted aye. The vote is 8 aye, 0 no, 1 excused. This would pass with amendment.
Thank you, Mark. I believe Representative Lawley has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I wanted to kind of read to the group what I wrote out for the conceptual amendment and see, if you guys have anything that you would like to be different. But in that subsection C, the county clerks shall have the authority to remove any election judge for violating their oath or not following the law. Okay. Thank you. I'll
Thank
give
you,
it to
Representative Lawley. And with that, we will conclude our meeting.